Hi everyone, I'm Lisa and welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I've got a card today using my favorite stamp set in the holiday catalog. It's called Merry Mice. The images are adorable and I'm just having so much fun coloring them in. And I decided to put a little twist on that card to teach you a window panel for the front. Here's a quick look at the card and you can see that it's got a clear window sheet panel on the front. I'm going to go over how to use the blender pen properly. I'm also going to show you the easy way to put the window together. You'll be able to find all the cutting dimensions for this project as well as still photographs over on my blog. The address will be on the screen at the end of the video. Let's get over to the stamp table and let's get started. Here, now that you've got a little better view of it close up, you can see that I have the window sheet here on the front that creates that opening for the cute little mice. So cute. I'm going to give you lots of tips about using the blender pen for watercoloring and show you how to construct the card. As a reminder, you can find all the cutting dimensions as well as still photographs on my blog. The address was on the screen at the beginning and it will be on the screen again at the end. So make sure you head over there and get all those for you. My cardstock has already been prepared in advance, 5.5 by 6.25. And then I scored it at 2 inches to give me this lip here. I love my bone folder. That's going to give me a nice crisp crease here on the edge. What I did with the remaining cardstock that I cut off over here is I took a piece of it measuring 3/4 of an inch by 5.5, and this is going to be the border of our window here at the bottom, and I'll show you how to assemble it when we get closer to the end. I cut a piece of cherry cobbler cardstock, 1 3/4 by 5.25. And then a piece of designer paper, and this is 1 1/2 by 5. I'm going to use my snail adhesive, and I'm going to put adhesive on the back side of this, and I'm going to mount that onto the cherry cobbler cardstock. This is going to add some color to the outside of our card. And then I'll flip that over and add some adhesive to the back. And that will get mounted here on the 2-inch flap. So I'm just going to open it up just to make it easier for me so that I can just kind of center to make sure I've got equal space on all 4 sides. So there we go. Now we've got the top done. Let's talk about the insert. This is 4 by 5.25, and that will end up going here. Now, because of the placement of the window sheet, we're going to need to make some marks. I'm using a mechanical pencil. Believe it or not, I found the eraser on these to be really user-friendly. They erase really well. So the tick marks I'm going to make will be easily erased with it. Here's that 3/4 inch strip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm holding this where I'm going to eventually mount it. I'll take the piece of crumb cake strip and I'm going to line this up near the bottom. And you're going to see that I'm trying very hard to make it symmetrical on where it's going to land when it's finished. With the pencil, I'm going to make a small tick mark, and then I'm going to add another tick mark here. So just small marks, and I'm going to hold that up so you can see it a little bit better. I think you can see them across the bottom. That's going to give us a range or an area on where we're going to stamp. I'm using basic black ink, and I'm using the stamp set Merry Mice. So darn cute. How can you resist those adorable faces? And I think at the same time, they're going to be great for every Christmas. Very classic images, the carolers and the ornaments, and I just love these 3 little girls. The sayings are really fun too. So I've mounted the trio of the mice on my clear block. I'm going to ink it up in my basic black ink. And I'm going to bring you in a little closer so you can see better. If you see here the tick marks at the bottom, I'm going to make sure that I have my mice just above that line. And I'm going to put them a little bit more off to the right than to the left. If you want to center them, that's totally fine. I'm going to set that aside. While I have the ink pad out, I am going to stamp my greeting. And I'm using the words from the same set, and this says, "It's time to deck the halls." Really appropriate for those little mice carrying presents and ornaments and lights. And I'm going to stamp that over here to the left side. I have my blender pen here. Both sides are exactly the same. There's a chemical in the barrel of the pen that moistens the tip, that turns it into a blending tool. Doesn't matter which one that you use, they're both the same. You're also going to see that the tips do get stained with usage. This doesn't affect it when you're coloring as long as the tip is clean. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that as we color. So I've brought you in closer so you can see better. I'm going to start with my crumb cake ink pad. I'm going to squeeze the back of the ink pad. We made them flexible so that when you open it, it will leave a well of ink inside the lid. And this is where we're going to pick up color from. You're not going to want to ever put your blender pen or even an aqua painter inside the pad itself because it will leave a pigmentation change. You'll see that it turns lighter. So you want to pick your ink up from here when you're doing any watercolor technique. The very first thing you're going to want to do before you start is you're going to want to make sure that the blender pen is clean. I have a habit of sharing my stamp room with Boo, and sometimes when she uses it, she doesn't clean it off, and I've had a mess. Proper way to hold it is like this, horizontally, and then you're going to run and turn it, and you want to make sure that you turn it. And the reason is that the ink will seep down into the blender pen. So you want to make sure that not just the tip is clean, but also down a little bit further where it could run to the tip with a new color. I hope that makes sense. You don't want to compromise the tip. Oftentimes I see people do this and I almost have like a little mini heart attack because look how fine this is. If you were to do that too many times, it's going to split the fibers on the end of the blender pen, making it very difficult to get into little tiny details like this. So always roll it on your scratch paper to make sure that it's clean. Okay, so now we're ready to go. I'm going to put my blender pen inside the lid. I'm going to take some ink from my pool and I'm going to water it down. This is very concentrated, so I don't want it too dark. I want to be able to control it. And I'm going to start by coloring in my mice with the crumb cake. Now the biggest mistake people make when they start to watercolor is they want to start in the center. Don't do that, because if it's really dark, you're not going to be able to blend it to make it look more real. So I'm going to start on the outside, and you're going to see how I'm going to carry the color over. So do you see how it's darker here near the top where his nose is and now lighter at the bottom? The other thing about watercoloring, or even using the blender pen, is you don't need to color everything solid exactly the same shade. You want that depth. So I'm picking up more color. I'm back inside here again. I'm going to pull that in so you can see. And now I'm going to go back over the outline of his ear. And this is where that real fine tip is really just an awesome thing. Picking up more color, I'm going to go into his feet. I'm going to do that one, and I'm going to do this one. And there's a little spot here in his tail. Do you see it? That's going to need to be colored in just a tiny bit. So I'm going to add just a little color there. All right, so now, oh, his hands. We almost forgot his hands. So I'm going to fill those in. All right. So now I'm satisfied with him. While I have the crumb cake out, I would go and color in all of the same color just to make it easier. I've got one that's already finished. I'm not going to do the entire thing on the video, but I want to show you how to change colors and I want to give you a few more tips. So I'm going to set this aside. We're going to change colors. So remember, horizontally, roll and turn. Do you see how the crumb cake ink is coming off? You want to continue that until it runs clear. I'm going to go over to Old Olive, again flipping it over, squeezing. Put a pool of ink inside the lid. I'm going to set that off to the side, and I know you probably can't see that because I want you to be able to see the coloring. But the same thing again. I'm going to pick up some color, and I'm going to water it down on the side so that it's not too dark. And this time, I'm going to color in his pants. Again, on the outside, dragging color to the inside, and I'm pulling it as far as I can go before I run out of actual ink or color. So again, you can see that. You can see how it's darker on one side, lighter on the other, and that's what we're after. Again, I would do the exact same thing. I'm going to fill in all the areas that I want green, and I'm going to go around his scarf. This, because it's such a small area, you don't have to worry about pulling so much because it really isn't much to color. This is the beauty of the blender pen, is that you actually have control over these itty-bitty spaces. So we've got our green. One more time, we're going to put the olive here on the bow. And I'm going to fill in my little ribbon. Don't worry if you go outside the lines just a little bit. This is watercoloring. Again, ready to switch colors. Horizontal, roll and turn. And you're going to see how the green's coming off here on the grid paper. And again, when it runs clean, you're good to go. We're going to close this up. And I'm switching over to Cherry Cobbler. This same thing, squeeze, open, pool of ink. This is a very, very strong color. So when I pick this up, I really want to water this down with the blender pen. I don't want it to be too strong. And this time I'm actually going to color in the Santa hat. So I'm going to come over here off to the side, and I'm going to pull color through to the center. This is the smoky slate pad. Again, same thing. Whenever you're using the blender pen, you're working from a well of ink inside the lid. Remember, we're checked. This is nice and clean. I am going to pick up some gray and I'm going to water it down all the way over here at the bottom. I don't want it too dark. Remember, you can always add more ink, but you can't take it away. The other thing is you don't want to oversaturate the paper in an area too much, because this is regular vanilla cardstock. It is not watercolor paper. But you see how they're kind of floating? So I want to change that. I want to give them some ground. Now before I do that, I'm going to make sure I use my eraser, and I'm going to erase those little tick lines. Again, the mechanical pencil eraser is really great for that. So here we go. I'm going to start at one end, and I'm just going to scribble across here, picking up more ink off on the side here, going back down this way. There's nothing neat about this. You're just creating a surface for their little feet to rest on. And I'm going to add a little bit more. And then this time I'm going to stretch this out just a little bit. Before you cap it and put it away, make sure you roll it on your scratch paper again to make sure it's running clean. That's just a great rule of thumb so that it's ready to go next time you take it out. We have our cardstock base, we have our vanilla, and we have our strip. But it's going to require the window sheet in order to create that window. This window sheet is actually cut 3 inches by 5.5. I want to make sure that I'm going to cover the circumference here on the end of this card so that it goes all the way across. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this to a portion of that window sheet so that we can lift it. I've brought in my silicone craft mat. I absolutely love this tool in my craft room. Not only is it great for your hot glue gun, but it works great with your adhesive. And if you haven't seen me demonstrate this product before, adhesives and glues will not stick to this. So if you run adhesive on here, there's no sticky work surface, which just makes this great to work with. So this small strip, I'm going to want to put a generous amount of adhesive on it. So I'm going to put the silicone craft mat underneath, and I am going to start by putting adhesive on the back of this strip. Just going to kind of run short segments of snail all across the bottom. Make sure I got my ends. All right. Window sheet goes here. Going to make sure my words are in the right place. You're going to want to make sure that you've got this at the very bottom of the window sheet and that you have it lined up end to end. Okay, so there we go. We have that. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to rub from the back. The next step is going to be to put this part together. What's going to happen now is these pieces are actually going to be mounted together. So the easiest way to do this is to mount your card here where we designed it was going to be. So I'm going to put adhesive in my 4 corners. I know you're probably thinking that's not enough. Actually, 4 corners is plenty. So we're going to put that here. And again, I'm looking symmetrically. I want to make sure I have about an equal number of space here, here, and across my bottom. I love to rub from the back because I always have inky fingers. And here comes the top of that window. I'm going to line this up at the bottom. You're going to see how it's going to fall in just a second. So my adhesive is actually going to go here. Just one strip is going to do. So I'm going to take my snail and I'm going to come all the way across here. And this is where that silicone mat is fabulous, so it won't stick to your work surface. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to line up my card at the bottom. So I'm going to make sure my bottom edges are flush. And then all I'm going to do is simply fold the card and rub. And look, now we've got our window. Isn't that awesome? Now, you're probably thinking, oh, Lisa, you didn't finish your card. You didn't finish your card. Well, guess what? I'm going to take this one out. I know I should have done that. Hey, do you guys ever make mistakes like this? I hope you do. Here's the one I have finished. We're going to put him on the inside. Here's another beauty of not using too much adhesive, right? We can change it out. Nothing like a card that isn't all the way done. All right, so there we go. That's better. Doesn't that look cuter now? Now, let's accessorize it. When I designed the card, I thought to myself, geez, it's so plain down here. I wanted to add another piece of that cherry cobbler cardstock, but I couldn't get it to fit where I didn't compromise the viewing area. So I chose this. This is the Baker's Twine Trio that's in the holiday catalog. One of the colors in here is cherry cobbler. Of course, there's a beautiful gold and a garden green. So I took the cherry cobbler and I unrolled a bunch of it. I'm going to start here on the end. And I actually went around the front of the card twice. Now it looks like 3 times because of the window, so just hang with me here a second. I'm going to pull my ends together. I'm going to slide this down. This is going to give us that really pretty border while adding an accessory at the exact same time. So here we go. I'm going to take my paper snips and I'm going to cut myself off an end so I have plenty to work with. Nothing like cutting it too short and having a fight with that. And then over here on the side, the very first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make a knot. The twine is very thin and you're going to find it very difficult to make a bow or any design that you want to make without making a knot first. So I'm going to put my finger here and then I'm going to run this through so I have a single knot. There we go. That'll be a little bit easier. You're going to want to pull it bigger than you need and pull it in the direction you want it to lay. Put your finger on the knot, take your loose end, and gently pull so that you can adjust the loops on your card. So I'm going to switch hands. I'm going to do the same thing here until you get the desired loop and shape that you're looking for. That may be just a little bit too big for me. There you go. That looks good. Just going to double check, make sure my knot is nice and tight. And then I'm going to come in now with my scissors and give that a little bit of a haircut. I want to make sure it doesn't extend too far past my card. Even though the twine is pliable, I don't want it to get snagged getting in and out of the envelope. So here is the card that we created today. I think you're going to be quite surprised at how you can use this versatile window in a vertical or a horizontal fashion. I am so glad that you joined me today, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next time, and I hope you have a great day.